My thinking of meditation was just turn off my brain. And this is not at all. So for years, Paul, for years, I was meditating because I gotta go meditate. I said, I'm not doing this right, even though I was doing this right.
I had 7 fireplaces, had a basketball court in my basement, and I was miserable. I was miserable, thinking that another girl would make me happy, thinking that another car would make me happy, thinking that another helicopter, another plane.
If you are not on the right frequency, you're gonna miss the train. And then it's why I'm here? Because we don't do the work on ourselves. And when we're something good at it, that's what so many people you and I, we hide behind business.
It was like psilocybin is safer than table sugar. There's never been a case of addiction, not one. There's never been a case of overdose, not one. And when used properly with a trained facilitator, you can create 10 and 20 years worth of therapy.
Welcome to Mastering the Inner World and Outer World podcast. Today I have Paul Hutchinson. Today he's gonna explain that why 10 years ago was a different name, but today it's Paul Hutchinson. So, producer, founder, big investor in the movie of, Sons of the Freedom. Now the book is coming out. And I do want to talk about that. And we're going to talk about stuff that we already start talking right before we enter the room about what is important and the humanitarian stuff that we do that you do. And the awareness and the, would I say awakening?
Yeah, it's all awakening. That's what
right?
it is, yeah.
Awakening society. So
awakening, elevating the global consciousness of humanity.
Okay. So let's start with so 10 years ago, your name changed. Tell me why your name changed. You were just so you know, guys, I want to tell you something. I'm so excited about this podcast, okay? Paul walked into my house and immediately it's we connected. And he is, same story, have completely financial abundance for everything else. You were buying helicopters, I was buying planes. It doesn't matter what we bought, what we had, we were not enough. We were the shit outside and completely broken inside. And on June 2020, 23rd, now we just, our life crossed and we have, I think, something very deep to share. And this time it's not going to come from me. It's going to come from him. So I'm excited.
Well, thank you.
Go ahead,
Super
Paul.
excited to share.
Let's start with the name change.
I was telling you earlier, 12 years ago, I wasn't Paul Hutchinson. I was Paul fucking Hutchinson, right? I had built a multi-billion-dollar company. I had 4,000 employees. I had a house that had 10 bathrooms, 8 private suites. It was just me. Me and a few girlfriends and a whole bunch, right? And I had 7 fireplaces, had a basketball court in my basement, and I was miserable. Thinking that another girl would make me happy, thinking that another car would make me happy, thinking that another helicopter, another plane would make me happy. And looking for purpose. Now, I was doing good. I was very charitable, but even then, just writing a check wasn't really getting involved, and it was still kind of feeding my ego a little bit. And so I was on a bunch of different boards of directors, child-related charities, etc. And 2 things completely changed my life. Number one, I got a call from our attorney general who said, Paul, I know you've donated a lot to child-related charities. I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't know that it's happening. And I'm like, what, illegal arms? That's second to drugs, right? And he's like, no, he says it's human trafficking. He said, there's literally more slaves today than all 300 years of the transatlantic slave trade put together. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, I thought slavery disappeared at the time of Abraham Lincoln. And then he said, now I need to talk to you about something even worse. He said, it's child trafficking. He said, there are millions of children being sold for things that you can't even imagine. And I thought, what, in like third world countries, whatever? He goes, no, all over the world, including here in the US. And so at that point, he introduced me to some operators who were working in Colombia and had put together a sting operation. So if the audience has seen the movie Sound of Freedom, I have a book called The Sound of Freedom that's coming out literally in the next month. I'm the executive producer of the movie Sound of Freedom. I'm the primary investor in the movie as well. And a lot of that story is, I'm just going to tell you the high level here of how I got involved. So I get this call from one of the operators. I was helping to fund some of the missions that they were doing. And he called me up and he said, Paul, he said, I'm in Cartagena, Colombia. We've identified more than 50 kids here, more than 100 children between a few different cities, including Medellin and Armenia, Colombia. He said, we've got this plan that we could rescue all the kids at the same time. He said, it involves, we need somebody who can negotiate a real estate deal. And now at the time, I'm the co-founder of Bridge Investment Group. We're now a little over $48 billion in assets under management. Back then, we just had a few billion, but it was enough where I knew what I was doing. And he also knew a little bit more about my background. I have a certain set of skills that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. And he said, Paul, he said, I think we can rescue all these kids, but I need your help. And I said, well, how much do you need? My ego self, I'll write you another check.
Of course,
right?
of course.
And he said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said, the head trafficker down here has got this piece of property that he wants to develop into a resort to sell his victims, which were children, to wealthy Americans. He wants to charge them $100,000 a person for a membership fee plus extras. He believes he can make tens of millions of dollars a year on this enterprise. And he's got connections with all these other traffickers. So somehow we need to get him to call all of them and bring all the kids to the same place so that we could rescue them all. He said, we believe he'll make those calls. If he thinks that the only way that you're going to fund his resort for these horrific things is if he can prove to you that he can fill it. So we're going to have a party. He's going to bring all of his victims all together. And if you're happy, you'll fund the project. So 2 days later, I'm face to face with the most evil people on the planet, negotiating this deal. It ended up being the largest child rescue mission I knew of in one day in history, 127 children. And that experience was the beginning of my transformation from being that Paul fucking Hutchinson to where I am today. But there was two experiences that were there that really made a difference. One of them, he halfway through this first meeting, one of the traffickers, and let me preface it this way. I thought that traffickers were going to be earrings in their noses and tattoos down their necks, and they weren't. This first guy I met was a businessman, clean cut, polo shirt, well spoken. The next guy I met was she was a female. She was like Miss Cartagena, and she was working with the traffickers with this fake modeling agency. And I thought, these guys aren't traffickers. Mm-hmm. And I after we started talking to them, absolutely. They were in a really, really dark place. And I realized over the next 10 years, as I led or played a key part in over 70 undercover child rescue missions in 15 countries, I realized the common thread with the perpetrators, with the traffickers, was not tattoos and earrings. The common thread was arrogance and greed and lust and addictions and unhealed trauma, all of these things that just kind of fed into this toxicity. And over time, I had to look in the mirror myself and say, okay, I'm doing good, I'm helping kids, but how is arrogance and greed and lust and an unhealed heart, how are those things showing up in my life? And how they're affecting my kids and my employees, etc. And so, the thing at that very first meeting, I'm there with these traffickers, and one of them brings out some of these kids. He brought out 4. There was a little boy that was 11. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared. What kind of fucked up monster thinks that that's attractive? Everything in me wanted to just, hug these kids. Say, you're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents today. And we couldn't say that. And I was sitting there, and they brought out this little girl. She also was 11. She had braids. Her hair was kind of reddish auburn hair, and she had braids. She had a white shirt with a little pink kitty cat on it. And on her cheeks was just her makeup. They had put a bunch of makeup on her, and it was all smeared because she had been crying. And I'm sitting on a chair, Jarek. I'm just like you and I are right now. I'm looking eye level at this child who's standing up, and I'm sitting down. And all I could see was fear. And I thought, how has humanity gotten to the point where this is okay ever? Ever. And I made a commitment at that moment to myself, to this little girl, to God, that I would dedicate my life to fighting that evil. So that was the beginning of my change. I went back home, though. Here's the problem. I started putting a lot of money and time into these missions. I told the operator, after the agents came and stormed the party and arrested everybody, the Child Protective Services people came in with the children, and they started laughing. They started singing with the children, and that singing, that laughing, that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. I've never heard something more beautiful, especially compared to the crying that I had just heard half an hour before. And I turned to the operator that was with me. I said, bro, I've spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. I had on my goal that spring, I was going to buy a white convertible Aventador Lambo. I had the pictures, I had it picked out, and $300,000+ for that car. And I told him, listen, I'm not going to buy that car. I'm going to write you the check instead. You tell me what you need. What do we need to do? How can we help? And he said, Paul, unfortunately, there's a huge part of the demand for stuff like this that comes from broken, wealthy, egotistical, lustful guys just like you, right? He said,
"What is next?"
Yeah, it's exactly. I would say. He said, I can't.
Devil gives you bribes. You know what I mean? And they give us the good life. That's the bribe. You know what I mean? And the second you fell for it, that's it. You just go on the other side.
Exactly.
That's the bribe.
Yep. I already had pictures with me with yachts and Lambos and planes and whatever. So I told my assistant, I said, take down everything online about the real me. Nothing. My social media, even my pictures on the board, everything gone. And put together a new profile. I said, there's a million Pauls out there. So keep me Paul, so I don't, as I'm doing more undercover work, but, do like a thing for Paul Johnson. And she's like, she can type faster than I can think, right? So she's typing. When she stops, she looks up at me and she says, you have a chance to redefine yourself and you're going to be Paul Johnson. She said, how about Paul Stone, right? So she puts together this badass profile, and that's what the traffickers were looking for. The undercover operators were going into the different traffickers saying, hey, here's a profile of this guy. He's got money and egos, pictures with hot chicks all over the place. And, he wants us to set up a party for him. And boom, that was the bait they were looking for. And these guys would bring out the kids that they were trafficking, and we were boom, 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 doing these rescues. But a few years later, I had been doing all these rescues. Here's the problem, Jarek. Rescuing those kids fed into my own ego problem. Yes, we were making a huge impact in the lives of those kids. but Paul fucking Hutchinson still existed, right? So now I've got the best panty dropper story on the planet, right? I'm a kung fu guy. Got all this money. I got this nice house, and I rescue kids on the weekends. You know what, Batman, right? But it was still feeding into it. And here's the problem is our undercover operators, we were burning through them. I had Green Berets with 200-300 missions in Afghanistan and in the Middle East. They already had PTSD. They're already dealing with a lot of their own shit. And then one undercover mission with me, seeing a menu with children, they're like, "Oh, I'm done." You know, I don't. So we were losing operators, and so I had a company in my early 20s. My first successful company was one that helped people overcome anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions, childhood trauma. We had 50,000 people a month calling in off of an infomercial. I sold that company for $20 million when I was 29 years old. And that's the money I used to start investing to build the investment fund. And so I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to use some of those cognitive restructuring programs to help people overcome these things and help some of our operators. Well, I got a phone call from two of my guys. It was Andy and Jimmy. And Andy had done 23 missions and Jimmy had done like 13. No, Andy had done 22 missions. Jimmy had done 13 missions with me undercover. And they said, "Paul, do you trust us?" I said, "Yeah. I trust you literally with my life. You know, doing this work, I'm in charge of talking. They're in charge of making sure I don't die, right?" And they said, "You need to come to this healing retreat." I said, "I don't need to heal. I'm Paul F. and Hutchinson. Everybody wants to be me." They're like, "No, you're on your second marriage, headed for a divorce. Your kids don't talk to you. You think that buying more things is going to make you happy. You think that even doing more rescues is going to make you happy." And they said, "This will be the most transformational experience of your life." And I'm calling bullshit on them. I'm like, "You know what?" I said, I've done transformational stuff. I know Tony Robbins personally. I've literally walked across coals with him standing right next to me. I've done transformationals. You can't tell me this is going to be the most transformational experience of your life. And then they told me what they were using. They said that we've got a doctor who's been training around the world in finding ways to help people overcome anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions, childhood trauma, and egos, and they can do it in a very short period of time, within days. And I'm like, that's BS. I said, you know that my company in my early 20s, that's what we did. And it didn't take days. It took years, right? If we were really, really consistent, we help people at least 21 days, they can start creating new habits. But it took us 12 weeks with a personal coach, 1 to 2 hours a day, to help people break free of some of these self-limiting beliefs. And and let me preface all this with this, because I think this is so important. When we're kids, when we're 0 to 8, 9, 10 years old, our brain is in a state of neuroplasticity. We're very, very impressionable. We can learn 3 or 4 languages at the same time that we're learning how to walk and talk and eat and all of these other things, right? Because we're just soaking in this information. A lot of it gets deposited into our subconscious mind. And 95% of our life is run by our subconscious mind. Now, after we're 9 or 10 years old, after we don't have that neuroplasticity anymore, and it kind of hardens. If you can imagine, like you poured a bunch of concrete and it's flowing, you can do whatever you want with it, but then it hardens. And if you don't have it flattened out, if you've got a bunch of crap, that it's gonna cause bumps your whole life on that hardened concrete, right? That's where your subconscious mind. And to make changes after you don't have that neuroplasticity, it takes at least 21 days to create a new habit. And that's, 21 days of chiseling that concrete to try to make it flat down in these areas that are all bumpy. Well, the tools that this doctor was using at this healing retreat, this transformational retreat I was asked to come to, were the proper use of psychedelics. We're talking about ayahuasca, psilocybin, ibogaine. These are all different types of psychedelics. Now, I thought I thought my entire life, I thought that these things were as dangerous as cocaine, right? Because they're Schedule 1 drugs. You can go to jail just as long having a bag full of mushrooms as you can some cocaine, 10 years ago, because it was a Schedule 1 drug. And so I thought they were dangerous. What I didn't realize, you can look these up, and your listeners can look it up with the John Hopkins studies, things like psilocybin is safer than table sugar. There's never been a case of addiction, not one. There's never been a case of overdose, not one. And when used properly with a trained facilitator, you can create 10 and 20 years worth of therapy in a matter of a few days.
That's what I would say. My last sport I did ayahuasca a few weeks ago, I really said, it's like 3 days of therapy. No, in 3 days, I accomplished more than in 20 years of, Tony, Dean, like all my self-improvement, me. And it's like, it's in 3 days.
Exactly.
But it took me 6 years to share it on social media, because I was like, I thought I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be, criticized and stuff like that. And at this level now, I'm like, fuck it.
Exactly.
If I can share it with anybody, I'm just sharing it. You know what I mean? It's
Well, and it's important for people to begin to understand how to do it right, because the laws are changing in the United States. There's Texas just put $50 million into, doing some research. Oregon, Colorado have already decriminalized parts of California, et cetera. And so, and most states, their district attorneys are not prosecuting anything because it's kind of on the fence. Technically, it's still a Schedule 1 drug on a federal level, but RFK, Trump have both said publicly, we're going to work on decriminalizing this. So once it is, though, it's incredibly important for people to understand the proper use. Because here's the problem. So I am not only not a fan of recreational use, I am adamantly against it because of this. You go to a rave party with your friends and they want to get high on mushrooms. Here's what happens. The psilocybin within the mushrooms, and we can talk about Aya as well, the psilocybin creates a temporary state of neuroplasticity, like when we were little kids, right? Very, very, very impressionable. And so, when, again, it's that concrete situation where if you have all these bumps in it because it hardened, what if you could turn it back into a liquid form again? Right? What if you could do that? You could smooth out those things so much easier instead of trying to chisel off all those things with 21 days of trying to create a new habit. So that temporary state of neuroplasticity, very, very impressionable. If you're at a rave party, getting high with your friends, there's a rap music going on over there, there's orgy going over there, some guy's yelling at his wife over there, in that impressionable state can be dangerous for what you're trying to create. Or if you're just hanging out, at home watching a movie, depending on what's on that movie, depending on what's on the songs you're listening to are very impressionable. So we have very specific playlists with very specific frequencies that are designed to help people break free of those things that they're so stuck with. And with psilocybin, with the mushrooms, there's 180 different strands of psilocybin. Some of them you can use for breaking free of those things that no longer serve you. That the addictions, the negative self-talk, worry, what if thinking, negative expectations, the perceptions of ourself, the perceptions of what happened when we were 8, all of these things. Because what happens when you're 7 or 8 years old and your uncle touches you or rapes you, or even something simple like your dad tells you you look fat in that outfit, or you're not smart enough to do good in school, whatever it is, those things get imprinted into that subconscious mind and are driving your entire life. And so here you are going through life wondering why things are so bumpy because your concrete has got all this shit that's coming out of it. What if you could turn it back into a smooth space by taking that window of opportunity, 4 to 6 hours in that impressionable state with clear intentions going in, the right music, the right environment, the right facilitator. And for me, here's what happened. So that's kind of setting the stage. So I trusted these guys enough. We're doing this undercover work. We're helping rescue the kids. And I'm like, okay, I'll go. You're right. My life's kind of screwed up. My kids weren't talking to me at all. They wouldn't even answer the phone. And I was on my second marriage, and it was a disaster, absolute disaster. My friends were were hanging out with prostitutes. My other friends were, pushing the limits with their girls they were with.
My 2 daughters, oldest daughter, did not speak with me for 2 years.
Yeah, a super dark place. And I thought, well, wow. And if I could have fixed it with the place I was in, I would have. But I had no idea. What I didn't know. And so I went into this experience, and it was the most beautiful, horrific experience of my life. Horrific. Because the music that the facilitator was playing and the doses she gave me and the types of psychedelics she gave me took me into this place where I had, I'm going to call it pure empathy, but it wasn't good. It was, I felt in every cell of my body, I felt the pain that my children felt when I cheated on their mom, as if I was them. And it felt like Satan had his foot on my chest. It felt like I was 600 miles in the earth being pressed down. And this playlist had this meditation, this deep thumping music that was going on. And then the facilitator changed it to what I call my Jesus list. Okay. And it was this, I could feel the hand of God just pulling me out of this just depths of hell. And I could feel all this shit just coming off of me. And I was like, right there. And then I could breathe again. And then I said to myself, because I was there to fix some things. I don't do anything just to play, right? I'm there for a purpose. I said, Paul, did you learn your lesson? So I switched it back to that meditation, deep thump one that had taken me down. And sure enough, whoo, it took me down. And I could feel, as if I was them, I could feel the pain of the family that broke up because some guy was at my party and slept with a cheerleader, and now his wife left him. And not only that pain, but the ripple effect of my actions. Thinking to myself, okay, now he's not together in this nuclear family. What if now his daughter goes and gets pregnant, or maybe his daughter runs away, or because they have an unhealthy family there, and then all of a sudden she's abused, and all of this stuff started coming, and I recognized that every word, every action, every party, every girl that I was with, everything had a ripple effect of good or bad. And then I changed the music back, and I felt the joy of the children that we had helped to rescue when they were being reunited with their families, as if I was them. And it was so beautiful. It was so transformative. Like, I came out of that experience, and the facilitator, knowing the things I wanted to work on, started there with taking me into that space. And then we're sitting there, we're in this beautiful room like this, and I had up on my fireplace, I had some Greek gods. I had Poseidon on one side and Zeus on the other, and then I had Atlas holding the world on his shoulders right there in the middle. And here I'm still kind of in my ego space, and I told the facilitator, I said, a lot of times I feel like Atlas. I'm in this, neuroplasticity space, right? And I said, I have got 4,000 employees, and I feel like I'm holding the world on my shoulders, but look how strong God made me in that space, and the stomach muscles of Atlas holding the world. And she kind of quietly listened, and then she said, Paul, I admire that you're seeing some of those traits in those Greek gods. She said, but you know as well as I do that those were mythological gods. She said, what about your relationship with him? And she pointed at the statue of Jesus, of Christ. And I said, oh, I don't qualify for a relationship with him. And she said, well, why not? I said, because when I left the church of my youth, years ago, my bishop told me that until I was rebaptized into that church, I wouldn't have the Spirit of God with me. And she said, do you really think that that's true? I said, well, no, I do good things. I help the kids. I do a lot of charity work. She said, why don't you work on that relationship for a little bit? And so here I'm on mushrooms. I can barely walk, right?
Yep.
And I stand up and she helps me take down this statue. And I sit on the beanbag for the next 2 hours, holding this statue, reestablishing a relationship that I hadn't had in a really long time. And it was because I was in that state of neuroplasticity with the right facilitator in the right environment, with the right intention, with the right music, etc. And it was an incredible change for me. So, that's a long story, bookend and everything, but that's how I ended up being in this place where now I became a master facilitator. My daughter became a shaman. We host 7-day, fully immersive, transformational experiences in South America, and it's one of the most beautiful things to see people completely release those things that don't serve them and step into that highest and best version of themselves that doesn't have to be tied to any of the things that happened to us, any of the things that we did. All of that can be released as we step into a healthy relationship with a loving God that has unconditional love for humanity. So there's my story in a nutshell. We can go deeper on any of it if you want.
No. How do we, because it's like, so you have your experience. My experience was first, I almost committed suicide. And we all have those voices. Like we all do. And for me also was significant. You know what I mean? I just want to prove the world, but I forgot to prove it to myself. Because I lost faith in God. I lost faith in me. I felt love, for myself. And it's just like never ending journey. And now I'm on the journey, but a lot of people they don't have access. They don't believe in any of this stuff. But how does the after that? Like how does the work started on you? Like because it just didn't happen because it's like now like we know that our subconscious mind when the second it goes through your head's if we not fix our mindset, what happened is the feelings, the emotions, it's transferred and is understood by the old trauma, the old wounds. So you're not fixing anything because your body's telling you what to do, and then you only know how to fix it from the old version.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
how do we? Because I always say, open the wound, put a salt to it, be with the pain, and go deep. How do you like what's your suggestion like on the daily basis, the morning
Yes.
routines,
Well,
morning?
and it's important to know that the plant medicine experience doesn't fix anything by itself. That there's nothing in the mushrooms that fixes your shit, right? You've got to do the work. You've got to come in with an open mind and an open heart and a very clear intention to move forward. And then you have the integration, the continual afterward is so important. In fact, when people come down to our retreats, one of the most important tools, we give them a lot of different tools that teach them breath work techniques. In fact, there's a lot of different breath work that people can do to really start feeling into their body. There's some DMT release holotropic breath work exercises that you can create a similar experience of what you do when you're on the medicine. But the most powerful thing that I believe we give people is teaching them how to meditate. And most people here in America, with the Western culture, we don't go into meditation. We think that that's an Eastern thing. It's not really Christian. Well, here's the thing. Let me just throw this out.
Okay, let's do meditation. Let's do stereotype. Because I thought like it took me years to meditate. I meditate a lot, right? But my thinking of meditation was just turn off my brain. And this is not at all. So for years, Paul, I was meditating because like I gotta go meditate. I said I'm not doing this right, even though I was doing this right. How come I'm thinking about this? Meditation is supposed to be my brain supposed to turn off. That's not what meditation is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can't meditate. Until suddenly, when I was really stuck alone by accident, I learned how to meditate. Oh, every time what I thought that's not meditation, it is meditation. And, I was using guided meditations. I was using the regular stuff. Walk me through meditation, because that's a stereotype. People don't understand what meditation is.
Exactly. Well, let me start with it this way. Let me compare it to prayer for a minute. Okay, so
I can't believe you said it.
So many times I
was praying, and I was embarrassed to tell people that I'm praying every morning. So I was telling them I'm meditating.
Well,
because I was embarrassed that. Not anymore, but you know what I mean? Because
because people are like, you're not a man if you have to go to higher power. No, we all do. Are you kidding me? In fact, a little statistic before we go into that about prayer. So, and if in the United States, the average divorce rate is over 50%. Right? It's 1 in 2. You have a 1 in 2 chance of getting divorced. If it's your second marriage, it's like 60%. Your third marriage is like 70%. So I'm like you.
Well, I don't have a chance.
I don't have a chance.
My third
exactly. I'm on my third as well, right? So getting into my third marriage, I'm like, okay, I've got to figure out how to make this one work. So here's something interesting. If you could do one thing every day, takes between 2 and 5 minutes a day, and take that from 1 in 2 chance of getting divorced to 1 in 1,000. Would you want to know what it was? People are like,
yes.
I want to know. Yeah.
Tell me. I want to know.
This is crazy. Praying together with your spouse, the divorce rate of people who pray together every day is 1 in 1,152. So that's from 1 in 2 to more than 1 in 1,000. Now, a lot of guys are like, I don't want to pray with my wife. Yeah, you don't have to have something special. No, our Father, what art in heaven. Just start out with, hey, God, thank you. Thank you for what's just so beautiful life, and help us with this, and then take some time to tune in and listen. It's super easy. Now, on that note, how do most people pray? Most people are like praise, right? God, you're so good. God, holy, holy. Okay, praise. And then sorry. Please forgive me. I really screwed up here. Sorry. And then fix, right? Please bless that this happened. Fix, watch over us, whatever. Can you imagine having a relationship with somebody like that? Can you imagine trying to date a girl, right? You call her up, praise. Hey, you're just gorgeous. You're the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. You're just so amazing. By the way, sorry. I really screwed up here. I left a mess here. I cheated on you here, whatever it was. And then fix. Hey, by the way, can you wash the car? Can you do this thing? And then you hang up the phone? That's not a relationship, right? That's how most people pray. Praise, sorry, fix. So meditation to me is listening. I'm writing a book called Are You Listening? With my hand on my heart. Not are you listening with my hands on my ear, but are you listening here with my hand on my heart? And I met a man. This was just to my brain. His name was Jarek Tadla. Sadly, he died a few years ago. But Jerry was an inventor of countless medical life-saving devices. He was the inventor of the original software years ago that IBM used as their voice recognition, like all of our Siri, all of that stuff. He invented it. Now, here's the crazy thing. Jerry couldn't read or write. He never graduated from elementary school. Yet he was tested at a local university as the highest IQ they had ever tested. One of the highest IQs in the world at the time. So I went to lunch with him, and he said, Paul, you could have an IQ over 200 if you wanted. And I'm like, no, I'm really not that smart. I worked hard for my grades, and I didn't even get a scholarship. I mean, and you can't change your IQ, can you? He goes, no. He said, the difference between me and you is that I listen better than you. And I said, you listen better than me? I touched my ear. He said, no, I listen better than you. And he touched his heart. He said, do you think that I'm the inventor of those medical devices? I said, you have the patents, right? He goes, yeah, I do. I said, you're not the inventor? He goes, no, I'm not. I said, what, you stole them? He said, well, kind of. He said, how long has the universe been around? I said, millions of years. He said, billions upon billions of years. He said, those medical devices were invented billions of years ago. I was a better listener than you. And I still didn't understand what he was talking about. He said, most people discount their intuitions because they know not from where they come from. They think that they came from their limited knowledge of the books that they read and the people they've talked to. He said, if you realize that that intuition comes from a place of infinite truth, then you'll learn to listen to it better. He said, we live in a world of universal truth. He says, we are all connected, heart to heart. There's literally intelligence everywhere. He said a lot of the greatest musical works were written note perfect the first time because they were already written. When you learn how to tune in, when you learn how to trust that still small voice of truth coming from God, it can guide you in your life in ways you can never imagine. I used this on the undercover missions, especially after I fixed my shit. I would go in and just close my eyes, even just a transcendental meditation, not even having to get anything deep, just close my eyes, slow down my breath, take it from my head to my heart, and listen. And in doing so, was able to be led to the places where the children were, what we needed to do to keep our team safe. Because of the fact, I think that the key in being able to trust that is unwavering faith. I think it's John chapter 5 that says, ask in faith, nothing wavering. Well, the problem is that most people have a hard time with unwavering conviction about anything. Yeah. Should I marry this woman? Should I start this new job? Should I go to this new city? I think that, I believe that, God looks down at what we're doing and he's like, you adults deal with that. Whatever you want, create, I'll work with you as long as it's creating good. But I think God looks down at what's happening with these children and says, no way. I don't care if you think that God is a cloud or a man or a woman or name's Jehovah or Allah. Doesn't matter. There's no greater creator of the universe that's okay with an 8-year-old being abused. So it was easy for me to have unwavering conviction that we're going to find the kids and tune into that still small voice of truth within. And so in the meditation space, it's not just about getting out of here. I have my operators read, there's a book called The Gift of Fear. Mm-hmm. And in The Gift of Fear, it talks about how our conscious mind only has a really small percentage of everything that we're consciously going through. Our subconscious mind literally remembers everything. Your subconscious mind knows how many stoplights you stopped at your entire life combined. Well. Your subconscious mind knows if you were talking to a guy getting ready to do a business deal with him, your subconscious mind knows if his pupils were dilating at any time in the conversation, can pick up on body language that your conscious mind doesn't have any idea was even there, mm-hmm. right? And so the gift of fear, that the book talks about how, when those spidey senses come, you need to listen to them because chances are your subconscious mind picked up on some guy that was walking that was wearing a big coat that shouldn't have been because it was too hot. All these other things, a situational awareness, your subconscious mind picks up on. And there's a massive amount of information. However, when you learn how to tune in to that meditation space, that literally opens up not just to your conscious mind, but to the superconscious mind of everything, everywhere, at all times, and you can tune into that truth that can help guide you in every area of your life.
I tell people like the simple way, just if your mind and your heart and your soul connect, that's where the abundance starts. That's where the freedom starts. But that's where the peace starts. And suddenly your world, the inside world, it will create outside world because your awareness and your consciousness is on a lot higher level. And suddenly you see things you could never even imagine you could see. But they like I cannot. You cannot explain this. You gotta experience it. You gotta feel it, and I was like, when my body is telling me something, I want to process it in my head, and I gotta make sure I process it from the conscious level, not from the previous trauma, not from the previous Jarek. I always say like it takes me still like I sometimes I call my old Jarek, 10 years old Jarek, like 10 years ago Jarek. And he comes in, fuck the shit up. And then I was like, it's like, and everything here is like, this is not right. This is not right. But we still call it back. And during meditation, for me, that's what I connect and that's what I find the answers. People they're dealing with, like, if you have to give them a shortcut, like, people they're struggling, they're hitting the bottom of the bottom. Like, I'm useless. I don't need to be here. Because sometimes the demons, I'm talking about myself, the demons just comes in and just sneak on me and it's like fuck with my head and it's like it gets through me. How do you like for me, like for you, tell me like what works the best for you or for people that do or your recommendations?
I believe that all healing starts with self-love. The problem is that we live in a world that is filled with judgment and guilt, shame, because a lot of the religions of the world, that's how they control us.
But I couldn't love myself.
Yeah.
Because I felt all the guilt and shame, and the way I talked to myself, it was like so shitty. So I couldn't, it wasn't even society. I created the society in my own heart, in my own soul.
You're beating yourself up over and over
I created this shit. And then what happened is that's what I was attracting. Like I'm telling you, you showed up here to help me. Like, bro, the stuff, I really, like, I was gonna tell Sam, are you guys fucking with me today? Like, you guys sending those guys, like, this is exactly, like, this is for me. It's not for you guys. I don't want to be selfish here. But it's like, I need to hear it to get the validation that I'm going on the right journey.
Here's how I tune in. And in order for me to get deep in my meditative space, I'll explain it this way. You remember back in the day of the analog radios, you had to tune it in just right to have the signal. Otherwise, it would be all fuzzy. And you get it just right to your right channel, and then you can hear your favorite channel, right? Those radio waves are already going through the air, but you can't hear them because you need something that can pick it up. There's a little receiver inside that radio. It's usually made of some small crystals that are able to receive it.
And they got to be on the same frequencies.
Then you need an amplifier. So for me, the frequency of God is a very, very high frequency of love. It's unconditional, infinite love. And so in order for me to hear that frequency, I have to tune into it. And so
I love you, brother.
I love you.
I'm serious.
So for me, before I can get deep into a meditative space, I imagine the center of the universe, the source of all creation, God, and I imagine this loving, powerful, loving, pure light coming through, flowing down through the crown of my head, coming into my heart, and I imagine it expanding my heart with the love of God and feeling that love. And sometimes I start with things that are easy, like my love for my daughter, right? Or something that's super easy. And then I focus on mirroring resonance so that I can feel that love of God flowing through me to my daughter. Super beautiful, super easy. And then I extend it out to other members of my family. Then I extend it out to my extended family. And then I extend it out to humanity as a whole. And then for me, in order for me personally to get deep in my meditation, I have to forgive everyone. I have to forgive everyone who has trespassed against me, everyone who has made my life difficult, and I have to love them with that pure, unconditional love of God. And then in doing so, I can then begin to love myself, who I know all of the shit about myself. If I can forgive them, I can forgive me. And in forgiving me and recognizing that those things were done at a time that I didn't have the knowledge and the strength that I do today. And sometimes I will do, have you ever heard of Ho'oponopono?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I recommend this book to everybody because it's so, whoever did not read it, just read it. That book is so little, so thin, you can read it in literally in 10, 15 minutes. And it's like, this is it. That's it.
Yeah.
And I have to read it so many times because I never loved myself. Because it started with me, like we on this journey right now that we have a higher awareness. Yeah. So we understand, but I could not relate to you. If we have this conversation a few years ago, and the same thing happened not only in this conversation, any other conversation, even in businesses. If you're not there, if you are not on the right frequency, you're gonna miss the train.
Yeah.
And then it's like, why I'm here?
Yeah.
Because we don't do the work on ourselves. And when we're something good at it, that's why so many people like you and I, we hide behind business because we found it. And that's where we hide. But we were hiding. And now we're just sharing the journey to change the world, because I truly want to help able people. I want people to feel what I feel and share it and just finish the suicide, the trafficking. This is like, it's ridiculous. And you cannot do it alone. And it's just having the understanding and it's an infinite game. We'll never stop.
Yeah.
And then we got to give the knowledge to everybody and just look generation to generation. It's when I have the conversation with, because my Bible is very wealthy families. And it's like, we cannot give kids that we didn't have the hunger. We got to bring them the awareness, the consciousness. We got to give them the emotional intelligence so they know how to use those tools. Because, we got it through hunger. They're not going to have it. Yeah. We already built all the ways. We got to give them through love, through faith, through connection with God, through connection with our soul, with our spirit. We cannot just tell them, go hustle. It doesn't work that way. They don't have to. They have the tools. We build the trains. We build the ships. We build the planes. Use it, but be able to use it. And we don't know how to use our own bodies. Yeah. We don't know how to use our own souls, how to own spirits. Yeah. We act out of our head, which is our ego, which is our devil. And that's why I'm keep losing my battles. You know what I mean? Sounds like that's enough. It's like, I'm loved again.
You know what's beautiful about your goal of 8 billion people? It seems like such a huge number. You realize that if you spend an entire year working on the man in the mirror, working on the man right there in that couch, and then the next year you simply helped 2 people overcome what they need to overcome, go from their head to their heart, learn how to connect with God, learn how to release those things that don't serve them. And let's say that the next year, those 2 people paid it forward and helped 2 more. Now you've only helped a handful of people. You've got literally 4 plus those 2. You've only helped 6 people. However, in 33 years, you're at 8.5 billion people. That's, we know compounding interest in finance, but you do that with people.
In my head, dude, it's like, I was like, you just said what I was calculating. Like, it's funny. Like, we know the compound interest. Like, we know how,
Exactly.
But the same with the compound, like people that are suffering, that's also the compound pain.
Exactly.
The emotional body pain compounds. So the sooner you act on it, the same thing you feel, stand up with the fear, with the pain, the sooner you recover. The sooner you're gonna have the healing starts, the awakening starts. So you don't have to suffer. So you don't have to lose. There's like already the statistic came out like last week. Last year, 720,000 people commit suicide. This year, already on the June 23rd, the statistic came last weekend, last Friday, so it was June 20th. It was 600,000 people. Six already this year. So the people are losing the battle with the voices.
Yeah.
And it looks like the answer is simple. The answer is not simple, but just like you said, like even with this, hopefully one person, we have one person.
Yeah.
And now we have the access to the social media, to the conversations, to everything else. So.
Well, and it's important for people to understand the ripple effect of all of our words, all of our actions, and how they affect everybody around us. There's an example I'll call it tension transfer. Tension transfer is, you go to work, you haven't fixed your shit yet. You're out of integrity. You're acting out of anger. You yell at one of your employees. And then he goes home and then he passes that anger on. He yells at his wife. And then the little boy comes home from school, and she's upset at the little boy. The little boy goes and kicks the dog. Literally, that kicking of that dog came from you being out of integrity, right? Of that anger. That was that tension transfer. Now, hopefully there's nobody on this listening to us who had ever hurt a child. We're all like, we would never, commit that. We'd never hurt a child with trafficking, whatever.
We do it unconsciously.
Exactly. So here's what happens. Let's just pretend that guy at work that we yell at, let's say that I yell at this guy at work, and what I didn't know is that he was severely abused as a child. And let's say that he made a lot of additional bad choices after that abuse. He got addicted to a lot of drugs and some things. Maybe he got addicted to pornography. Maybe his pornography addiction has escalated because he has just this anger inside. And because of that abuse as a child, it escalates into, let's say that his abuse escalated into looking at child pornography, which happens a lot if they don't get the help and the love and the healing they need, right? And let's say that his wife just left him because of his alcohol problem. And let's pretend like I didn't know any of that stuff, of the pain he was dealing with. And what if this is the weekend that he gets his 11-year-old daughter and her little cousin? And me acting out of anger, not being in a place of integrity, and my anger towards him, now that tension transfer hurts a child. So we all have to look in the mirror. I love the story of the man who's sitting on a couch, and his little boy comes in. His little boy says, Daddy, let's play baseball. His dad's like, no, I'm busy. I'm watching, I'm reading my newspaper, right? And little boy comes back a little bit later. Dad, let's play baseball. No, I'm reading the newspaper. And he turns the page on the newspaper and he sees this map of the world. And he tears out the map and he tears it up in a little piece of paper and he throws it on the floor. And he says, son, you need to learn your geography. You go tape together every piece of that, get every single country exactly where it's supposed to be. If you do that, I'll come out and play ball with you. He goes back to reading the paper. Like a few minutes later, the little boy comes back and it's taped together perfectly. The man's like, what happened? Your mom help you? The little boy's like, no, I realized there was a picture of a man on the other side. I just put the man together and the whole world came together. And that's really the answer right there. We all look externally. I want to save humanity. I want to help all these people. It really starts with just putting the man together first. Then and only then can everything else come together.
How do we share this, brother?
We already are. We already are right here.
Goosebumps. Every book I sign, you got everything you need already within you. Start looking from outside bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
It's not there. We are here on this earth to serve. We are not entitled to shit. We've been, both of us, this church, we were entitled. And that shit almost took us the wrong path. I'm entitled to this. Yeah, I don't wait in line. I don't do this. Like I don't like you know who I am, dude. That shit made me fucking miserable.
Yeah.
The answer is with us. Go deep, find the answers. And I'm telling you, like this podcast, brothers, it was for me. Like Paul, I mean, like this was for me. I'm telling you, like it just like my whole body was like shaking. You know, is the frequency. It's
This is how we heal the world right here.
It's exactly it, and it's like you said. I love how you said the story. You help one person, then the other person, two person, and in 33 years we got like I will do the math. I'm a number guy.
Do it.
Because you know how I want to repeat it. So can you? And I just because it was important. The slavery. Can you just say the number because because I never realized like how big is the trafficking and like with the children.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's bigger than you can imagine. There's somewhere between 8 and 12 million children who are in slavery, considered slaves today. However, here's what's sad. That's a little tiny number compared to the real problem. Over 40% of women in the United States have reported that they were abused sexually at some time in their life. 1/4 of all women, it was while they were children. Now that's just the ones that report it. The average age of somebody talking about sexual abuse in their home, average age is 52 years old. That's my age. I've raised my kids. I've built my career. If you're holding on to that pain all those years, it comes out in anger issues and anxiety, depression, PD, all of these things.
It does. And those people that cause, they don't even know.
Yeah.
They don't even know.
Exactly. For men, the number's a little bit less. It's 1 in every 5 that have admitted it. Most men never do. Most men are like, that thing that happened to me as a child, by my uncle, if I talk about that, it'll make me less of a man. No, it won't. You were 8. That was a horrible thing that happened because of somebody that was holding on to a lot of pain that passed it on to you as a child. And just the act of talking about it relieves more than 50% of the pain that we hold.
How do you know? Because we don't, because I was scared to talk about it. Right? So I didn't know. I have to hire somebody outside my bubble. And if the person doesn't listen to me, if I don't let it out, because, when you let it out to the universe. But then I was screaming and yelling alone. And then I finally found somebody else. And it's like, hey, I just hire somebody out of my bubble so I don't get judged. I don't get the guilt and shame. They don't look at me weird.
Yeah.
They don't know who I am. I'm just gonna show up in the regular clothes, and then they're gonna have my name. But, and that's how I started. Not everybody has because sometimes like the therapy, it's like $150. Not everybody's got $150. Yeah. But just say that out loud and then talk to somebody. And I always say people just recommend somebody out of your bubble because you don't want to call your parents or your friend because then your friend can use it. If they judge you, then you're really might hurt yourself. But so that's my advice. And it doesn't matter how bad your story is, you can help somebody. You're gonna like I always tell people, like people's like, Jarek, I don't have what you have, so I'm saying goodbye. I'm like, you know what? Before you do anything, smart, stupid, whatever you want to call it, just share the story with somebody, your story. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, they call me, holy shit, I thought I'm in the mess. Like this person was even more mess. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
We all oneness. Yeah. We are separated by society, by color, by the status, how much money you have, how much education you have, the color of the skin. It's ridiculous. We have one soul. Yeah. And we all on this earth to serve, to help, to love. and just I think, brother, we gotta share the message. And again, thank you for coming here. Whoever guys find Paul on, well, the book is coming up, right?
Yeah.
Please watch the movie one more time. Paul, where can people find you?
Liberating Humanity.
Okay, we're gonna
Everywhere.
put the podcast.
LiberatingHumanity.com. You can go onto all social media on Liberating Humanity. You can pre-order the book on Liberating. If you don't remember the word Liberating Humanity, you can just type in SOF book, Sound of Freedom book, any of those.com will take you right into Liberating Humanity. And there you can learn things to do to keep your kids safe. You can also, more importantly, you can learn things to do to help yourself heal. And, I talk about that in the book. The Sound of Freedom book is not just about the rescue missions that we did that you see in the movie. The whole first section is all about things that parents can do to keep their kids safe. Everything from situational awareness to listening to that still small voice of truth within you, etc. And then I take the reader through the emotional transformation that I went through in helping these kids. But the whole last section is pretty much what we've been talking about today. It's all about healing humanity. What does liberating humanity really feel like? What does it look like? And where do we need to start with that person in the mirror? What kind of tools, what kind of meditation tools, what can we do to help ourselves, free ourselves from those things that don't serve us anymore?
This is the message, guys. The last sentence, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Paul, thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Leave your comments and subscribe for more insights on mastering the inner and outer wealth.